Hey, welcome back to the channel. Sorry it's been a long time no see. There's two reasons. That light that comes on this old phone, it makes it hard to make a video, but stuff it. It's there, it is what it is. Secondly, I've actually wanted to wait a little bit because I did make some predictions for March, just some of my thoughts, and they probably aren't going to come so much to fruition as at least now, and there's some things I'm going to go into. So with the rising interest rates, you know, I assume that just everything would start to start heading downhill with the weight of higher interest rates. And that still is, I think, going to happen. But what happened in February in my country, New Zealand, holy heck, we had a massive flood. So we had a flood in Auckland that was pretty bad. Like, I was like, wow, that's going to be major damage. And there's going to be a lot of work doing those repairs, that even if we do start to see a slowdown in housing, there's probably quite a lot of repairs to actually get done. A lot of it will be insurance claims, so it'll happen. And, you know, if we did start to see a slowdown, a lot of people would probably go up there and work from other parts of the country. But little did I know that a huge flood was going to hit us. This massive cyclone has come and it has caused so much carnage here. It is beyond belief. And I'm going to talk about that in this video. So it might be a little long because there's a lot to cover and because I haven't been making videos. Well, our East Coast and our Upper North Island has been absolutely hammered by the cyclone. There's destruction, the likes I didn't even think was possible from a flood. There is parts of New Zealand that were known as, like, for example, the fruit bowl of New Zealand because of our orchards and our vineyards and our, you know, we grow a lot of stuff and we produce and export or consume that stuff. And it was fairly plentiful. The biggest problem they had was actually finding workers to pick, you know, the berries, the apples, the pears, the peaches, all those sorts of things. Well, a lot of this has just been destroyed. So our forestry industry wasn't allowed to burn off the waste product because of the carbon emissions. So they have what they call forestry slash that's on the, in all of these hills, and it has got into our waterways and been pushed by, well, in some parts of New Zealand, there was enough rain to fill 72 Olympic-sized swimming pools every minute for 6 hours straight. I mean, it was just, and the water just came up so fast that it wasn't like, oh, we're flooding, oh, I better get out of here. It was like the water wouldn't stop coming up, and within minutes, it was up to your neck, you know. People were rescued off the roofs of their house. Some people died. It's been really tragic. And the cleanup is astronomically bad. A lot of people are volunteers helping out. It's been a beautiful thing to see, but you know, a lot of those volunteers are people on spades. Hopefully they don't get injured, like injure their backs and stuff like that. But you know, they're doing it without all the required things. Sometimes, you know, like you need machinery to do a lot of this sort of work to really make a dent. And I don't know what the story is, where things are, like, it's massive. It's massive. And not only has it taken out produce, homes, roads, bridges, there's that forestry slash caught on all the bridges, and then it was like a bulldozer blade, and it just destroyed so many bridges, major bridges. And if you don't know, our highways are through some very rugged terrain. They are wiggly, windy, up and down hills, going through rock faces and all sorts of stuff. So, you know, if you have to access something with 6 bridges washed out or bits of road, or 15, 20, 30 bits of damage on a short stretch. Like one major highway has had the whole road slip away on a hill 30 meters long, and it's like deep. It's deep. It's come off the hill, gone underneath, and just pushed the whole road off for 30 meters. Now, to me, fixing that is probably a 2-year job. So there's so many big jobs. The flood banks on the rivers burst, so they all need repair. Houses need repair. The labour involved in this is huge. Now, does that mean, oh yay, we're all going to have a job and we'll escape a recession or a depression or an economic collapse or a whatever you want to call it, a crash? Well, I don't think so. See, in 2011, we had the Christchurch earthquake, and there was a lot of people, tradespeople, that just didn't have any work. Right? There wasn't enough work for them. So suddenly, when they're all sort of twiddling their thumbs or just doing small jobs, suddenly there's more work than they could ever want just awaiting them. Come down. Now, the difference to that is that they weren't actually doing any work. So, yeah, although we were fixing things that are broken and all the rest of it, they at least had some work to go and do. Whereas at the moment, we have a labour shortage. We don't have the resources available to us, and there's inflation. We didn't have inflation then. There's rising interest rates. We had lower interest rates then. They weren't as low as, as they became, but they were on their way down. We didn't have this inflationary pressure. We didn't have supply shortages. People couldn't give stuff away. So we didn't have all those pressures that we have currently. So I think we're going to start seeing a situation of, well, we need workers, and we need them now. Because the faster we clean up this mess, the quicker we can bounce back. All right, so if you are, say, a builder on the West Coast, where your wife and children live, and you have work on, and the East Coast says, come and work for us, well, how much are you going to pay me? Well, if the going rate's $45 an hour for a labourer, builder, labour, not somebody who runs the company, they're getting about that. Well, I'll pay you your flights, your accommodation, your food, and more money. Well, then I'll go. But then now they might have on the West Coast or other regions, I'm just making it up as an example, they may have a shortage of now tradesmen because they're all buggering off over here, right? So they are going to say, tradespeople wanted, we'll pay you more than what they're currently paying you, which is going to entice people that are over here to say, well, I can go up there and get work. Or people that are local over here on the East Coast go, well, hang on a minute, you're paying them that much. Well, that's what I want. Truck drivers, grader drivers, digger drivers, it's all going to be the same thing. It's going to be extremely inflationary. Then everybody's going to want product at the same time, right? Getting the product used to be, you go here, it's streamlined. Now, well, I can't go here. I have to go here, then here, then here, then here, and so a drive for a truck driver might have doubled in time. And of course, there's a huge traffic jams because of all these one-ways and repairs and stuff like that. So even if the proper road is somewhat open, you're just going at a snail's pace the whole way. So suddenly, we just don't have the infrastructure to have a flow. There are parts on the East Coast that are cut off, for example. And let's say, you have factory here that's making X produce. Let's call it applesauce, and it used to get apples from the orchards delivered, and then applesauce made, and then ship out. Well, suddenly there is no apples, or not enough, and so the price of apples goes up, but the price of truck driving's gone up, and the price of fuel's gone up, and the price of the time required to actually get there has gone up, and the delays are costing money. And suddenly that applesauce that used to cost $1.50 may not be able to be produced, for under $4, $5. So suddenly, the prices in the supermarket, it all has a flow-on effect. And it's, hey, come drive a truck. What are you doing working at the supermarket? Come drive a truck for me. I'll pay you $45 an hour to drive this truck. Well, now the supermarket's going to have to keep their workers by paying them more. It's just a massive, massive flow-on effect. And the jobs are really not economic growth jobs, you know. If you grow apples in an orchard and you produce those apples and you create those jobs of picking the fruit, but at the end of the day, you know, you put them in a container, send them overseas, and overseas pours money into our economy for those apples or whatever it may be. And suddenly there is no apples to produce. There's just some guy on a digger lifting silt, dirt, you know, mud off a property and getting rid of it. Yeah, he's got a job, and yeah, he might be getting paid well, but it's not actually producing anything. It's just restoring something. So, you know, I could get a sledgehammer and whack the side of the door and say, I've got a job for you, fix my door. But nothing has really been produced. It's just been money exchanged, which is what? I would say it's going to be inflationary. So I am, in my opinion, not financial advice. Nothing I say is financial advice. Everything I say is just my opinion. But in my opinion, inflation is set to really start surging again. And I don't believe the government numbers are actually that accurate. I think they understate inflation and just however they can do it as best as possible. Because if inflation was, say, 15%, which I believe it was 6 months ago, to be honest, if it was 15% and they said, well, we've got rates at 5%, well, hang on, you need to have rates at 20% to fight that kind of inflation. So I think they lie to make it sound better than what it is and just hope the public accepts a little bit more of inflation. But what's happening is people are starting to go, I can't pay this mortgage if these interest rates go up. So I'm not going to go out and go to that restaurant, or I'm not going to the movies, or I'm not getting takeaways, because when it comes down to keeping my home, that is, the roof over our head is the most important. I'm not going to service the car. These things are going to start happening where people are just going to make every cut there is to make. And I've done this at a time when I was a one-income, two-child, two-adult household, and I was supporting all of it. You just start cutting and cutting and cutting, and people who haven't been in that situation, they don't understand it, because, you know, you go to a pub and all your mates are drinking alcohol and they're blowing $50 and you haven't got $5. You know, so you might say, I'll have a Coke and hope it's not like $4 or something. It's $2, hopefully, or water. And your mates are looking at you and they say, oh, you're a tight ass. Oh, you just don't want to. It's because you haven't got it. If you know that I am so, at that time, I was so on the wire between, you know, solvent and insolvent, that even if I knew I was having a good week, you know, where things were okay, I knew something would come up in the future, and then I'd be like, oh man, why did I buy that beer? It was that tight. Well, what do you think's happening to these people? The mortgages keep going up, and this is going to be a spiral, because people are going to start asking for more money because of the labor shortage. And when they get more money, that's just more inflation. We have the minimum wage going up. The fuel tax, I think, has been pushed off to like mid-year because of the floods. But what's funding all the roads? So you've got the fuel tax that's due to come in. You've got minimum wage going up. You've got labor shortages. You've got food shortages. You've got scarcity of resources and labor. Well, it's a labor shortage. You know, you've got houses that are being destroyed. You've got probably a housing shortage because of where all these people are going to live that have been flooded out. We've got cost of rebuilding. All these things are very, very inflationary at a time where they're trying to cool the economy, right? And are they prepared to break the economy? That is the real question. Are they really prepared to break the economy? Because if they are dead serious, and so far they have done more than I thought they would. They have said that they won't allow the inflation. They have raised interest rates. They have raised them more than, say, like the Australian central banks, which have been doing like these really tiny hikes. which is a bad move. But they need to be serious. They need to be raising these interest rates. They need that. I'm sorry, but they need to say, we don't care about your problems. We're going to raise rates. And that's it. Because they simply cannot allow, 7% inflation. Another year, that's government numbers. That's 15% inflation if it doesn't go down. What if it goes up? You're talking 20% inflation and they still haven't solved the problem. So what's the next year? Another 10 or 15%? Suddenly, you've lost half your purchasing power, and you're earning more than ever, but you're being taxed more than ever as well, because you go through the tax brackets. So you're earning more than ever, but you've never been so poor. And as those interest rates go up, of course, what happens to the price of housing? It goes down. So, if the price of housing does keep going down, but the cost of rebuilding could keep going up because buying new materials costs money, right? Like, what a conundrum. So this is, to me, a very, very serious situation. This could lead, in my opinion, and it wouldn't surprise me, I am worried about it, this could lead to an economic collapse of this country. Now, I think we're going to have in my opinion, a global depression, because every country around the world has got the same problem, not necessarily of flooding, but there will be natural disasters all over the world, but there will be, it's with inflation. I mean, Germany doesn't have a pipeline coming from Russia anymore getting gas. That's gone. Prices last I heard of electricity had gone up 84%. It's massive because the whole economy runs on electricity. So every price goes up. So they have to raise interest rates. America, well, we know the story there. China's got problems. Australia, England, I last heard I think, was it 19% food inflation or something silly? So they may start trying to raise taxes to fund, to pay these debts and all sorts. So we have, in my opinion, so many red flags for the economy, and it hasn't happened yet. So, I will say that for the cyclone, I had some emergency supplies. Nothing major, but it was really after the Christchurch earthquake. They were saying, no one was prepared. You need these supplies. So I had, some tin food and packet food and an emergency, grab and go bag. If the SHTF situation happens, I could grab it, run out the door and go. And I may not have every single thing I need, but I have the basics, And if I was in a situation where I didn't evacuate and my house was flooding and I had to get on the roof and I had not long to do it, I would have been able to grab that bag because it was in a location, go. And I actually had 3 or 4 of them just in case, like if I had a car and I was evacuating by car, I could throw 4 bags in the car and it'd have more stuff in it. But if it was just one thing, I could get on the roof and go. But in that main bag, I had a tarpaulin, a disposable poncho, those foil sleeping bags, food, battery radio, torch, highlighter, like high-vis vest, so I could use it as a signal. If I had, if they were flying a chopper around, I could wave that around so they could see. I had water, can opener, cooking supplies, knife, these basic things, cup, plate, some coffee. Not that I could make coffee on a roof, but, I just had some things. Now, sitting on the roof with that much rain coming down in clothing without a tarp, just having that tarp on its own would have made a huge difference to the situation. And so I'm really bringing that up because if you're not prepared for a natural disaster, you should be. And I really think the same thing is now with the economy the way it is. I'm not giving you financial advice, but if you had a mortgage, maybe pay that down quicker, maybe start saving some money for an emergency, or maybe have some spare food. So if times get really tough and you're really against the wall, maybe you can just have some food supplied. It's probably a good investment because if it keeps inflating, well, it's gone up in value. It might be going up more than housing, who knows. But yeah, that is really where we're at. I'm going to make more videos. what's the word? You know the word? More often, more regularly, because consistently, that's what I was looking for. But I actually really wanted to wait till March so I could actually watch how things were panning out, so that I didn't just make all these predictions and things are changing week to week with these natural disasters, and now I'm saying this and that and the other thing. I want to be quite consistent with my message, but this has obviously changed things. Our Reserve Bank came out and hiked up interest rates 0.5 percentage point. So that I wasn't actually expecting, because I thought that they would be too afraid with the flood. But no, they went ahead. They advised our government not to borrow money, to cut spending or raise taxes and find the money without creating more inflation. But all the political parties are saying we're going to borrow more money, we're just going to borrow, that's the right thing to do, is we borrow, and they're saying that we have low levels of debt, which is actually nonsense. We have never had more debt. It's just they're comparing it to people like America that have more higher levels of debt than we do. So essentially, it's like if you were on The Biggest Loser and you were morbidly obese and you looked around and you saw all the other morbidly obese people and they weighed everybody and you said, I'm the skinniest person in the room. I'm the most healthiest person in the room. Therefore, I can eat this McDonald's. Well, you're not in good shape and neither is our debt. So adding to it, and that means higher interest rates. There are political parties promising cheaper childcare, and it's just an ever-growing government. It's bigger and bigger and bigger. And right now, it probably needs to be getting smaller, because times are going to get tough and interest rates are going to be much higher. And how are we going to service the debt? Taxes. Higher taxes. And the only way to avoid that is maybe cutting spending and finding the waste that we need. Government has grown exponentially, like since the last maybe 6 years or something. So maybe it wouldn't do them any harm to shrink, but hey, I'm not in control of that side of things. I'm just giving my opinion on it. So yeah, I think that we need to be watching the space, keep watching the channel, like, subscribe, comment. It's really appreciated. It motivates me to actually make content, because if I just see people have watched it but they haven't told me how they feel about it or given their point of view, it's sort of a bit of a lonely place. So yeah, I still think that we are in for a global market crash this year. And I also think that we're probably going to have a third world war. I actually think that. There is so much swaying the way of war that, we have the war obviously in Ukraine, and I think that if Russia starts progressing through that country towards Kiev, that either NATO is just going to say, that's it, we're going in, or there's going to be some kind of, there was some bomb let off and it was definitely the Russians who did it, so now we're going to go in because they attacked one, so that's an attack on all. And if that happens, that's probably a false flag event to just give them a reason and a justification to go in, but I believe they're going to go in either way. I also think that the Chinese are going to invade Taiwan. They're saying it. They're the ones saying it. We're going to invade Taiwan. They have said that if China invades Taiwan, that Australia is going to go to war against China with the likes of the USA and probably UK and stuff. I mean, where does it end? Where does it end? And NATO is making moves into the South Pacific region, I believe. And I think that China may be looking at that and going, yeah, no, you're not doing that to us, buddy. And if that happens, it could be that they say, well, it wouldn't surprise me if the Chinese join in with the Russians. That's a possibility. I don't know for sure. I hate war. war is stupid, but war has been around since, there's been non-stop wars. We never learn our lesson. We never get smarter. There's always tension and aggravation between all sides, and I wonder why these things can't be handled through negotiation. Surely that is a better option than what we're seeing. But it is what it is. But it would not surprise me that if, and just because if they go against, if NATO does go into Russia, and they will go in if the Chinese go in, I believe anyway. If the Chinese join Russia and say, we're going to be on your team, that's it. It's World War III. Right? It's World War III. And just because there is grounds for a nuclear war if that happens, because we've all been told, if you do that, we're going to push the button. Pushing that button is actually a big deal. Now, you can't discount that could happen. I know that if the Chinese and the Russians invaded America, that would be it. The Americans wouldn't hesitate. They'd push that button. That's why they have it. And that's why China and Russia and France, they all have that for that reason. It is, but it's kind of like, at what point do you push it? If we go to a third world war, then if that happens, if NATO does join that war and Russia disapproves or China, what, do they just push the button then? Probably not, right? It probably goes to an all-out, skirmish first. But at what point is someone going to say, we're losing, that's it? And that's the end. That's the end of everything. Crazy to think, but these are the times that we're living in. It actually looks, if you look at the headlines from around the world, it looks pretty apocalyptic. So I just think like that it's time now to really, start thinking about a lot of the what ifs and making sure that you can survive through a tough time. Because if we do have a world war, or a NATO versus the East, even if it don't go nuclear, it's economic Armageddon. It's not good. So may not happen, but I've never seen in my life like a worse, more intense situation than the one that we are facing now. We've got all these sanctions, and we've got, these guys versus these guys, and these guys hate these guys, and nobody gets on, and nobody trusts each other, and everyone breaks promises to each other, and it's no good. So I'll wrap this up. I know it's gone on a bit long, but I think you should really get prepared and stay prepared and be ready for anything, really, because as we've seen with this destruction of a flood, as we've seen with countries going to war, as we've seen with arms shipping from east to west and all that sort of stuff, and these people making deals with these people, and it's actually just crazy. It's just crazy to think about what's going on. So I'll wrap it up, and see you in the next one. Peace.